I think the difficulty of it is what intrigues me about the desert. It's hard to, it's a tough hunt. Deer like that are meaningless to me. They have no value. I don't have any respect for myself when I do that. I'd rather go out, find one on my own, and grind him out, put him away, and at the end of the day, I can look at it and say, that's mine. But I'm looking for mineral. I'm a dirt guy. First thing I look at is dirt. And then if I get into trouble where I've hit a stale spot and I can't figure things out, I'll go back and I'll start reading my journals. You know, I take a lot of pride, and this isn't for everybody, I take a lot of pride in tracking. Spider webs are my biggest key in point. Spiders love getting in the pocket of their hoof track. If somebody's with me, it'll blow their mind because they think I'm just this deer whisperer that has magical capabilities. You know, you only have one deer, you know, one tag to fill. You might as well make it worth it. Hi, this is Chad Roberts, and you're listening to Living Country in the City. Hope you enjoy.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 68 of Living Country in the City. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to all y'all that are tuning in each week and subscribing, leaving ratings and reviews. You know, if it wasn't for y'all, I would be talking into an empty microphone. So I really appreciate y'all. You really make it worth doing what I'm doing. Also, a big thank you to all y'all that are supporting me financially through Patreon. You know, it definitely comes with a cost running this podcast weekly, and all y'all that have gone over to my support page, livingcountryinthecity.com/support, and either purchased merchandise or decided to contribute monthly to my Patreon page, y'all have really helped as far as chipping away at those monthly costs that come with running the podcast. Also, a huge thank you to Sawyer Products for being the main sponsor of this podcast. They're huge supporters of what I do here at Living Country in the City, and I really would not be able to do what I do without their support. If y'all are looking for any of those really simple products, the kind of stuff that just keeps you in the backcountry for longer, stuff like water filtration, insect repellent, all of that important stuff, you know, Sawyer's your go-to. I just had a conversation with some guys over on Go Wild, and we were talking about the differences in insect repellents, and Sawyer is really the perfect option for an outdoorsman. All of their insect repellents are scent-free, they're light, they won't ruin your gear. Go check them out, Sawyer.com. All right, so getting to today's episode. This is an episode I've been wanting to do for quite a while. A lot of y'all have requested that I get this guy on, and I finally got a chance to officially meet him at the Western Hunt Expo. As you guys will hear in the podcast, we have kind of met before in one way or the other, but I'll let y'all hear that story in the podcast. But I had a chance to sit down at the Western Hunt Expo with Mr. Chad Roberts. He is a desert muley hunting master. This guy puts down monsters all the time and makes it look easy. Well, I don't know about easy, but I'll let y'all decide for yourselves. Hope y'all enjoy this episode.
All right. Well, here we are. Sunday at the International... No, not the International Sportsman's Expo. We're at the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo. It is Expo season, so it gets a
they all run together.
Confusing. But yeah, sitting here with Mr. Chad, gives me crap in the Arizona backcountry, Roberts.
So. Yeah, that was funny. A few weeks ago. Well, you know, I was I was up on the mountain and saw this character hanging out down below me, and didn't really think much of it, but I knew he was there. And later that night, or actually it was a few days later, I believe SKRE had tagged you in a picture, and so I went back and I went through your profile. I was like, I know where this is at, and. Like, I got to mess with him. So I responded on one of your pictures, and I believe it was the tent one first. Was it the tent one first, or was it the tracks?
I think it was the tracks.
The tracks, yeah.
Because I talked about the trail
set a trail camera up, and I just kind of threw out there, you know, you can't set cameras up in that unit, and I know that caught you off guard. And I was
sitting there thinking, because I'm like, okay, I wasn't really trying to hide where I was at, and I'd posted some of the skyline, and I'm like, I'm like, wow, okay, this guy. I'm seeing if this guy actually knows where I'm at or is just talking crap.
Yeah.
So I think I fired back. I'm like, oh, which unit's that?
Yeah, that was, and then I fired back with the answer.
Yep.
And before I'd done that, I'd gone through, and of course I had your vehicle and everything else, and I knew for a fact where you were exactly where you're at, so I could play some hardball. But no, that was too funny.
Yeah, no, we were good. We went back and forth a couple of times a little bit, and I was sitting there, and you were talking. I'm like, I was kind of getting a little like irritated, like defensive. But I was sitting there. I'm thinking the whole time. I'm like, I feel like this guy is just messing with me. I just know he is. Like, and so I was kind of. I didn't go like full bore defensive on it, but I was about to. And I think then you messaged me. You sent me a DM, and you're kind of like, hey, I'm just screwing with you a little bit.
Well, I just try to lighten it up a little bit. That wasn't the intention to crank any nerves. I just wanted to play a little bit. You don't get that opportunity quite that often.
Man. And I mean, it was just perfect because it couldn't have happened any other way. If you weren't working with SKRE and following them,
I wouldn't have saw
that connection would have never happened. It's just the funniest coincidence, but yeah. So I always like to start out with maybe just a little bit about your background. How did you get started in hunting? What prompted it?
I'm from Yuma, Arizona. I'm a desert hunter. I hunt multiple species throughout Arizona, different levels, but I excel in the desert. It's something about it drives me. The difficulty and being consistent on solid bucks is all I really expect from myself, and it's really tough to do. You go to other places. Let's say throw Idaho out there, and it's 75 to 100 deer per square mile, and where I'm from, it's 1 deer per square mile. And that's on average.
Eesh.
So there's vast areas with nothing in it, and those areas change from year to year, and you really got to stay on top of it and focus, unless you're hunting around farms. If you're hunting around farms, it's pretty much the same thing every year, and so many people do, and I'm not knocking anybody from that. We're all hunters, and that's great, but I really, really enjoy the challenge of the pursuit, of sharpening the stones and staying on top of them every month that goes by, and I'm documenting rain and everything else, and it keeps me engaged, and it keeps me sound as a person, so to speak. I've gone through stretches where I wasn't hunting, and my life's a wreck when I'm not able to focus and just live out there, so to speak. And it just really keeps me in tune. So that's why I do what I do. And those deer, they're chasing moisture, they're chasing water, feed, all kinds of stuff, and you got to spend time with them to understand them. And you'll go to an area that's bone dry, no feed, yet there's deer there, and you got to understand, are they just moving through here? Is there a mineral here that they're after, or is there a water hole that I don't know about that they're after because there's no feed here? And some of your deer will pick up and leave, but some of your deer will hang out. It just, every one of them is unique to within themselves, and being able to find one buck and learn about him, you find out so much about him. That's why I hunt away from farms and everything like that, because you don't get that opportunity.
So what got you started on this obsession with the desert? Like, how did you?
I don't know. I started out hunting like most young men with their dad, and I really don't know what turned the switch on. I had this little Arizona Game and Fish record book type deal. It's a little like 5x6 book, and it's got all these old 1970 pictures in it. That's how old this book is. And it's real thin, and there's just one non-typical in there, and I believe it was the state record at the time, and I would gawk at that picture and be like, man, I'm going to kill one of these one day. One day I'm going to harvest this. And I never really thought it would turn out, especially not on the desert. But I think the difficulty of it is what intrigues me about the desert. It's hard to, it's a tough hunt, and
it's unforgiving.
Everything's crunchy. Out of the last 3 stalks, I had one at 6 yards. I had one at 18 yards, and this last stalk was at 60 and on the shot, and that was as close as I could get. It's super crunchy, no wind, and it's the difficulty of things that keep me going. I don't do a whole lot of networking where you're finding out spots and this and that. Deer like that are meaningless to me. They have no value. I don't have any respect for myself when I do that. I'd rather go out and find one on my own and grind him out, put him away, and at the end of the day, I can look at it and say, that's mine. I did that. Nobody else. That's who I am. I have nothing against networking, and it's a new way of hunting, a new technology, a new move. Just like my dad taught me how to stalk deer, and then I learned a lot on my own. Networking and stuff is basically just another skill, another new item.
So when you're looking, you talk about you're not out there, asking me like trading secrets and here's my my hunting hole or but so you're out there, you're looking for specific country, right?
Yeah.
What are you looking for when you're looking for that country?
I'm looking for no people. Honestly, that's one of them. One of the things I'm looking for. I don't like traffic. Deer don't like human traffic. Your big bucks like to seclude themselves far from anything. But I'm looking for mineral. I'm a dirt guy. First thing I look at is dirt. I understand it. I'll look for pockets. You can see where a washout has dropped off the side of a mountain, and it's just a bowl there. Well, you got a ton of mineral in mountains for the most part, and you find these spots, and you just keep tabs on them over the years, and you'll notice that even when they're dry, there's a ton of deer there. There's a ton of deer tracks going into these spots, and you're like, what are they doing? They're eating rocks. They're eating rocks, and that keeps them going. Even during the drought years when there's not a lot of feed, those little mineral pockets keep them going. So you'll get deer that learn these areas, and even when they move out for a while, they come back. Or there'll be a pocket that has a ton of mineral in it, and deer will always come back to it. So you find these spots, and you just keep track of them. And as it rains and things green up, you've got good mineral and stuff there. There's going to be deer there. And then on the other hand, it'll be really green over here and lots of feed, but there won't be any deer in it. And you go, well, what's any different than this area from the next area? Well, one area's got mineral in it and one area doesn't. And down there, you can put mineral blocks out or whatever you want, and those deer won't go to them. They've got their natural stuff they like. They're stubborn, and they go to that. If I had a whole lot of advice to give, it'd be find mineral. Key in on that. That's rain comes and goes, feed comes and goes. That mineral stays there, and that'll consistently bring deer in for the rest of your life. It's a good base to go off of.
So how would you, as far as maybe for a layman, maybe a couple of signs that you've, because to some people, I'm sure dirt's dirt.
Yeah.
What kind of signs do you look for to recognize these mineral spots?
Iron deposits, little red in it.
Okay. Typically a lot of the color.
Yeah, just color and then salt. You'll see salt rings and stuff like that. And deer don't like just any mineral, so you've got to do your footwork, and find these little pockets, where water has ran out into the ground, and it's just a washout that has held water. It'll hold water, but they'll dry up.
Okay.
But you'll see that even though it's dry, there'll be deer in there, deer tracks, and they keep going in there, and it's because they're eating the mineral. So you key in on those spots and write them down. I keep journals. I've got a journal since probably 1998. Damn. I keep track of rain. I keep nowadays you can screenshot everything on your phone. So storm rolls through, and I screenshot. So during the summer, about the time monsoons start firing off in the day, I'm constantly screenshotting, bang, 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 throughout the day of the whole state that I plan on hunting.
Are you talking screenshotting like the weather pattern?
The weather pattern.
Okay.
So I'll screenshot the Doppler radar. Boom, boom, boom. And come hunting season, or when it's time to really start putting the boots in the ground, I'll take, and it's like a portfolio. It's like a book, because you can just take and scroll over, and you can just watch the moisture pattern over the state or over the area that you like to hunt, and you know where most of the moisture's been. Where most of what moisture's been is where most of the feed's going to be. And then if you got mineral pockets in those areas on top of that, it gives you a good idea to start with. So you can go right there and eliminate so much out there, because the desert's a vast area, and a lot of it's just that, a desert, dry, nothing there. So that helps me do scouting from never getting out in the field. And I've got so many spots that I couldn't imagine with the time that I have nowadays to be able to go through them all. So I'll just take and go back to my records, check the water, and then start from there. And then, like I said, I've got a log from 98, 99 on that I'll write down what time of day I saw a buck, where he was, what he was doing, or even does. You know, I'm not prejudiced. I love them all. So I'll write it down. What are they doing? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? And then if I get into trouble where I've kind of hit a stale spot and I can't figure things out, I'll go back and I'll start reading my journals. And because, you know, as life progresses, you forget so much. I mean, work's hectic and pulling you in all different directions. I have 2 little ones now. You know, they're a ball, you know, so things take a back burner, and you can only fit so much. I can only fit so much in my brain. So I'll go back to those journals and just start reading them, and okay, and just sort of find myself again and get out there and grind it out, and it works. It works for me.
I mean, you're basically the farmer's almanac of desert muleys.
Exactly.
You got that.
Exactly.
Got that history,
and it's work.
You see those patterns.
It's work. You can slack off, and some guys are just have a knack for finding deer, and they don't do that stuff. Some guys get lucky. I've never been lucky. Everything's, you know, come off the sweat of my brow. It's
well, and I've seen
a lot
some
of
of
work.
the stuff you've pulled in, and you don't pull in bucks consistently like that out off of sheer luck. You may get one in a lifetime.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's what keeps me sane. You know, it's something that I enjoy doing, but I've got such a backlog that it's tough to beat that. You know, it's.
That's like, I know some people that would probably pay a lot of money.
A lot of money for
journals.
those, yeah. They're not for sale. No.
So let's pause right there for a second, hear a quick word from one of my partners.
All right, y'all, we all know there's folks out there who are successful year after year rocking a set of bargain bin Walmart camo. However, a full layering system of premium hunting clothes can make a huge impact on your comfort level when you're spending time deep in the backcountry, and can really be the difference between going longer and harder or just going home. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I personally can't afford to drop $3,000 or even more on a full set of premium hunting gear. Now, that's why I'm excited to tell y'all about SKRE gear. Not only is SKRE as capable and durable as any of the other premium lines out there, it also comes in at a price point that won't leave you too broke to put in for tags. SKRE's patterns use the science behind perception and fractal concealment and have been designed by one of the foremost concealment experts out there. He's designed for militaries, law enforcement, and special forces in the US and around the world. Not only are their patterns incredibly versatile for any sort of terrain, but their layering systems allow you to pack a minimal amount of gear for maximum effect. So whether you're side-hilling across rocky debris in the baking desert sun or crawling over snow-covered deadfall high up in the frozen Rockies, SKRE's versatile layering system has you covered. Literally. And if that's not enough, for that added layer of confidence, SKRE offers an outfitter and military discount, a limited lifetime warranty on all their gear, and free returns on new gear until you find the perfect fit. Even better, you can get 10% off all orders from the SKRE store by using code COUNTRY10. Check out that SKRE discount along with discounts from other awesome outdoor companies by visiting my partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners.
Okay, so we talked about where to scout to find them. So once you pick a couple of these spots, what the heck do I do then? Do I just go sit in the middle of the mineral deposits? And
No. I take a lot of pride, and this isn't for everybody. I take a lot of pride in tracking. I'm really, really good at it. And I'll break it down just a little bit. I won't get into it a whole lot because you can go on forever and you just won't catch it. So to track, you got to spend a ton of time with deer. And I'll drive a road that I know that there's good bucks in this country. And I'll drive a road and one afternoon, and I'll turn around and drive it the next day and pick up on new track that's in there, or drag it, or whatever, or be at a water hole. If I have to pick up a track off a water hole or something like that, then what I do is I'll watch that track, and literally it has to be consistent for 200 to 300 yards. No spider webs, no brush, and the brush you got to take in consideration for wind, because the leaves will blow into them. Spider webs are my biggest key in point. Spiders love getting in the pocket of their hoof track because they catch anything that runs across them, and it's just a trap for them. So they get in there. They'll set their little webs in them. So I'll go down through there, and so for 200 to 300 yards, I'm looking at that track. Spider webs, how wind blown is it? It's got to stay consistent the whole time. It has to stay the same, or I won't stay on it. It's got to stay the same. And once it's proven to be fresh, because a couple hours will give all that stuff up. Critters will move into them. You'll get you'll have variance in a track as the wind will be blowing through it. It won't be as crisp. So if it's all the same for within a couple hundred yards, I'll pursue it, and I can tell it's a mature animal, and that just takes time in the field. It's a mature animal. At that point, you still don't know what he's got on his head unless you've tracked him before, and then you got to pay attention. And I usually take pictures because it's just like a fingerprint. They're all different. None of them are the exact same. So
one will be a little bit wider,
or they'll set it down different. They're all different. So I'll take a picture of it. I'll put it in my journal. Okay. So if I've tracked this deer while I'm scouting, I know what he is. I'll come across him while we're hunting, and I'll say, this deer is this, and we'll go look at him. And if somebody's with me, it'll blow their mind because they think I'm just this deer whisperer that has magical capabilities to know how big this deer was just by looking at his track. Well, I've seen him before. That's how I know.
I can imagine you sitting there like messing with people.
Oh, yeah.
Like putting the knife in the ground and putting your ear to it.
That's the best part. That's the best part. So I'll do that, but that first couple hundred yards will be the tell sign if I'm gonna pursue it or not. And then once you pursue that, then you have to know what time of year is it, how far is he going from this water. Because if it's summertime, they're gonna be within a couple miles, and if it's wintertime, depending on how much weather they've had, they could be up to 8 or 9 miles. It just depends. Most of the time, they're 4 to 5. That's the ballpark range. So once I get out there a ways and I know what time of day it is, and I'm looking for, I can't really explain it because we don't have a video on us, but I'll get a general direction. I'll line up and get a general direction on the track, so I'm not always looking at the ground. Mm-hmm. And I'm intermittently picking the track back up, and if I completely lose it, I'll go back. But I'm working in this general direction and kind of still stalking. So I'm taking my 10s and I'm dialing in under every piece of brush as I go. And it takes a long time. And normally when I start on a deer, I'll do that for, sometimes it may take me a day and a half to track a deer down. And that's because you just have to be thorough, because if you ever relax, he's got you.
Yeah.
Most of your big mature bucks will track out and then circle back around their track a couple hundred yards. So while you're following this track, this deer is behind you watching you. And then once you start to make the loop, he's gone. Big bucks do that. that's why you got to take your time, and you got to peer off to your side, your 90-degree angles, and looking under brush the whole time and picking everything apart. And that's hard to do, especially on the desert. That's really hard to do. I enjoy that. I enjoy that. It gets me going. When you kill a deer that way, no matter what he looks like, you earned him. You earned that deer. And sometimes you just got to be lucky.
I mean, there'll always be some form of luck involved to some extent, but
so
you need to rely on that less and less when you put in the work.
So, and then, like I said, having a lot of knowledge throughout the years, of just deer behavior and terrain and stuff like that, has helped me hone that skill. You just don't go out there and take what I just said and apply it.
Yeah.
Well, you can apply it, but you need to know the other things too before that'll work for you. Otherwise, you're going to be there a long time.
Theoretical knowledge, I keep saying this, and that's been, I have about as much theoretical knowledge as anyone. I've talked with some of the most amazing people and studied everything, but it's not the same as practice and days in the field and actually doing what you just read about or just had somebody teach you about.
Yeah, and if you don't live around country like that and you're interested in it and you need a starting point, you need to listen to guys like Marlon Holden, Gray Lake Hunter, Travis Nowotny, Rick Palmer, David Long, Travis Roundy, Jason Carter. When they do a little piece and they write a little piece, and sometimes they do, read it. They're not going to give you everything, but they'll give you pieces of the puzzle. And this guy may give you a little piece of puzzle, and this guy may give you a little piece of puzzle, and you might be able to thread them together. But it's going to help you, especially when you go out to an area like that to start. It's always good to be able to do a little bit of research, and then learn for yourself. Take what's worked for them and then build on yourself, work on yourself, because everybody's different. Some people aren't as patient as others. When I take off and I'm on a stalk, I'm not a big afternoon hunter. I'm not. I like using the day up. I like to use the day up. So I feel if you glass one up in the evening, you're more than likely going to make a mistake. Yeah, you can push the limits, and sometimes things work out. And when it's crunch time, you got to do it. But if it's not crunch time, you got a big buck, and you know that you can pick him up again, my advice is not to hunt him in the afternoon. My advice is to wait. Wait till the next day. Wait till you have some more time. Don't blow him out of there, because you won't see him again that season, more than likely, if he's got any brains. So what I'll do if I'm glassing and I pick up a deer in the morning, usually if I'm by myself, I will let that deer bed, and then I'll let him switch his bed, because they will switch their bed from morning to afternoon. Sun changes angles, they'll switch, and they'll get in their afternoon bed. When they get in their afternoon bed, it's usually when they get their best sleep. So it's usually when you can make mistakes and get away with it. And they're not going to get up and move on you. If they're in a really good spot where I know that I can get down there, close the distance, and get down there, and it'll better my odds because I've got a little bit more time to play with when they do switch their bed, I'll do that. If I know I can pick them back up when I get down there. And I take pictures of my surroundings, take pictures of the layout. I'll use Google Earth or Onyx Map, and if I can find something that's where they're at, resemblance, I'll mark it, just to give me a little bit of an edge. But once you get out there, many people move too fast. And if you just take your time and go slow, get the wind right, go slow, and till you can make eye contact with them and pick something out, with your glass while you're stalking, you just have to go slow and pick it apart. So,
say from the time you've spotted a buck to the time you've stalked up to it to the point where you're ready to take a shot, what's the longest stalk you think you've been on?
Oh, I put one on a buck. Last year I stalked in on a buck and I probably put 6 hours on him. And I sat above him at 120 yards for 4 hours.
Jeez.
It was just, he was in a little pocket, and there was 16 does with him and numerous little bucks passing through. And I had gotten over the top of him. I found him on one side of the ridge, and I knew where he was going. So I went around the backside, and I come up over the top of him. It's just a little rolling hill with a nice deep gut in the center of it. And I sat on that point, and I watched him. There was no play, but I was willing to go back. I was willing to leave him there, and I was willing to go back. And actually 2 days before that, I had him at one point with my old man. I said, nope, now's not the time. Laid off of him, come back 2 days later. And I was sitting there ready to leave. At any point I could have got up and left. I had deer coming next to me and didn't have a clue I was there. I was just laying in the rocks, no cover. And this little buck come by me, probably 10 yards, and went down there, and that buck had one doe with him, and the rest of the does were down here feeding probably 200 yards away, but they were all right there close. And that little buck went through there, and the doe got up and kind of followed the little buck down range with the other deer. And the big buck got up, and he went down about 50 yards, and he just laid down out in the open, a little gotcha wash. And it's now or never. And I had real strong wind. It was probably blowing 25 mile an hour. And it probably took me all of 10 minutes to close 100 yards. I shot him at 19 yards. Nice. That was probably one of the longest, because I would say it started about 7:30 from the time of spot, and it was, I don't know, 4:30 when I shot him. The second one was, I started about 9 o'clock and ended about 4 o'clock. I was in some wide open country, but you only have one deer, one tag to fill. You might as well make it worth it.
Yep.
And if you just like being around deer, you can always go out there and take pictures, when you're done with them.
Yep.
But you might as well make it count. And if anything, you're learning something while you're taking your time, because you'll either get hung up and you can watch their demeanor, watch what's going on, watch these other deer, what are they doing, and it's just all sucking it all in while you're doing that, and putting it in your brain and using it for later.
So we talked about taking it nice and slow. We also talked about making sure you're aware of the bigger picture, the wider picture, the surroundings, rather than just focused on walking through these tracks. What are some of the other mistakes you see people making pretty often that could kind of mean the difference between blowing something out or?
They're knowing when you're close enough. I think a lot of guys get in there and they're within shooting range, and they've got a pocket they can shoot through, and they keep going. If you're in your range and you're within your abilities, just sit there and wait for it to happen. Especially if you've got decent wind. If you feel like the wind's going to swirl and bust you at any minute, you might whistle and get him up. For the most part, I don't want him knowing I'm there. I'll just stand there and wait. I usually take some candy with me, some hard candy, and I've killed giant deer. But even a little 3-point, when you get in close, you'll start trembling, your hands will start shaking. We take pictures and video of these deer, and our hands are just shaking. But the reason why we're doing it is calm the nerves. If you don't get excited when you're that close, you probably shouldn't be doing it. It's just, I can stalk a doe. And get within 20 yards of her, and that whole time from 60 to 20 yards, I'm just a wreck, because I know I'm going to get busted any minute. So most of the time, it's knowing when you're there and just hanging out. That's the biggest mistake I see, is people keep pursuing when they're there. They're wanting to see them. They want to get them up. They just get impatient. You're already on edge because you're right there. It's easy to do. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to ruin a good day, especially when he's big. Because you want it to happen. You're afraid he's going to bust you. He's things aren't going to go your way. All that's running through your head. If you can calm your nerves down and think about why you're there and relax, take your time, it'll happen. It'll happen. And it doesn't always happen, but you gotta keep after it.
So other than possibly maybe, obviously your weapon or, your tent and water, what's maybe some essential piece of gear or something that you find especially useful that may not always be in the typical hunter's pack? Is there anything that you especially use a lot?
I use my phone a lot nowadays.
Yep.
Like I said, I take pictures. I take a lot of pictures, and so I'll use my phone a lot. But for stalking, I would say my glass. It's your 10s. I'd say get a good pair of 10s and use them. And dial through the brush and pick things up. You're looking for a hoof, an ear, anything. And without that, you're at a severe disadvantage because your eyeballs don't dial in through stuff. And when you use glass, it's just like a camera lens. You can either focus on this twig that's right here in front of you, or you can focus beyond the twig that's right there behind that one, or you can focus on the rock that's behind that twig. So if you do that throughout the brush as you're working along there, you can pick up that hoof, that ear, that eyeball, whatever it might be, antler tips that you would generally miss if you were just looking. You can look at a bush and never see something. You got to be able to look with your glass.
Get a good set of 10 buys, but as we both know from my little glassing trips, not quite as good for long range glass.
Long range glass, no.
Those you might want something a little heftier.
Yeah, and for the most part, a set of 15s will work for you.
Unless you're 1,200 feet above me and
you
sit there. What did you have up there? 32s
I had 32
or something?
by 85s.
Jeez.
And but you got to get up high to use those, and they weigh
a
a lot.
The camo pattern I'm wearing.
Yeah, they weigh a lot, and it takes a little different animal to carry them that high. If I'm going to be a couple hundred feet off the ground, I'll use my 15s. There's no need for them. There's no need for big glass. If you're my old man gets up on little tiny rollies that aren't 100 foot and picks up more deer than most.
There you go.
And so it's whatever you're comfortable with, really. And just practice, and being patient. Find a bush, look at it hard, and go to the next one. When you're glassing early morning, you can scan, and you're looking for antler tips moving or just the sun to reflect off a body, any movement. Once they bed, though, you've got to go to each individual bush, and you're just looking at it, just stare at it, and all of a sudden you'll go, that don't belong there. Let me watch this for a minute, or I got to make sure my eyeballs aren't screwed up, and then pretty soon you'll see a deer out there.
There you go. So if people wanted to check out all the Desert Muley action, where can they find you online?
Online, it's at ChadRoberts_88 is my handle on Instagram, and then my Facebook is just Chad Roberts. And we try to keep it fresh. Everything that's on there is mine or something that I've had direct input on. So everything's public land, free range, spot and stock or track. It's
there you go.
It's all earned.
All right. So as we're winding down here, this podcast, it's directed towards folks that, like myself, new hunters, a lot of people that don't have that background, or folks from the city that may not think they have access to go hunt. And what if someone came up to you and said, hey, I want to get into hunting, but there's just so much to learn, so much to do. I'm super intimidated. What advice would you give them?
My advice would be don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure is what gets you in the direction you need to go. Without failure, you don't learn. Without failure, you have nothing to fall back on. I mean, if you understand that, you got to have failure. And the biggest thing is don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail. Put the effort in, and you can pick up so much knowledge from people on the podcast and stuff like that. And just try to remember it all, or little parts and pieces, and you'll put it together. It's one of the reasons why I put that deer down at our local shop, and it was to spark the interest of young kids and young adults that want to learn how to hunt or don't think that things like that exist, because they do. They do. Anything can happen if you put your mind to it. I am a firm believer in that. But when I was a youngster, I didn't have anything like that to look at. I had books to look at and see these pictures. Now you got Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop and stuff like that are closer to home. But before that, you had to go to the East Coast to go to Bass Pro or whatever.
Yeah.
That's why he's down there, to spark the interest, So there's guys out there that are willing to help. They're not going to give you their spots, their locations and stuff like that, but they're willing to give you knowledge. And, we're all in this together at the end of the day. So don't be afraid of failure. And hustle, and if you can do it on your own and work for it, you'll feel much better about yourself. That it just the gratification is unreal. So that's the only advice I have to give.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time and hopping
yes,
on.
sir.
Appreciate having you.
It.
I love the episode.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 68 of Living Country in the City. Make sure y'all head on over to my show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/68 to check out links to all of Chad's socials, as well as everything else we talked about on today's episode. All right, also keep an eye out for my road trip plans. If y'all are on the route, I want to see you. I want to have a beer with you. I want to go on a hike with you. I want to figure something out so I can meet all y'all. Check that out on my Instagram as well as on my calendar page at livingcountryinthecity.com. Hit me up. Let me know if y'all are going to be around. But in the meantime, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.